Welcome, my friends, to the realm of the fog. So, Dead by Daylight. I think it is a pretty good game. I nearly put 800 hours into it, and I'm probably going to be playing it some more. I've been meaning to do a long-form scripted video about it for a while now, but instead of doing a full-on review on it like I did with last year in Death Garden, I decided to do something a bit different. So here's a list of my top 10 favorite killers in Dead by Daylight. Something I've been trying to script since fucking Legion's release. Yeah, that's almost 2 years ago. Naturally, the script has changed here and there has to be a cutoff point at some point. So let me say it right here and now that this video will be only counting the killers up until the Chains of Hate DLC. So whoever comes out afterwards won't be considered for the list. Also, this list is a personal one based on my favorite killers, not based on which ones I think are the best at the game, which means why I like them is based on my personal tastes and experiences. Just felt like I need to put that out there so people didn't mistake this for a best killers list. So with that said, let's begin the trial. And how fitting that the first killer we're going to be talking about today is the first killer added to the game. Before killers with paragraph-long abilities were released, there was the Trapper, who placed bear traps. Yeah, that's about it. Trapper is by far the most simple killer in the game. You just set traps and you forget about them. Survivors who step in them get their fucking ankles bitten off. And while this makes Trapper surprisingly hard to script for, this doesn't make him any less fun. The amount of satisfaction that comes from hearing a trap snap, followed by a survivor screaming, is matched by very little in this game. So satisfying! And that's all he can do, but sometimes that's all you need. Trapper is the most basic killer in the game, even down to how his add-ons work. A lot of them have very basic effects to keep things simple, but sometimes those simple effects are the ones that are really strong. Hell, his strongest add-on is the one that reopens traps after a few seconds, because it plays into one of Trapper's biggest strengths: area denial. As long as the trap is active and properly placed, you can completely shut down certain loops, making it easier to get hits on survivors and end chases faster. Also, Trapper is arguably one of the best basement killers in the game, aside from Bubba. Setting traps in the basement can catch survivors trying to get into it, or catch ones who are trying to flee from it before you can return. So yeah, all of this is good, but there is a reason why Trapper is much lower on the list. For one, the amount of setup you need in the early game can lead to Trapper getting gen rushed, and this can result in matches where you aren't able to recover without the help of Noed. Part of this is because you don't start with all traps in your hand, meaning you have to go around the map picking up traps so you can set them, which can be very time consuming. You can alleviate the issue using Corrupt Intervention, which is his best perk, but even with it, you can still have some bad times due to having very little map pressure on areas that aren't trapped. Also, because his traps aren't proactive, you rely very heavily on survivors messing up in order to get them to work, which makes him a killer that does worse in the higher ranks where survivors know how to work around him. But sometimes that's okay. Not every character needs to be good at all levels of play. Some can be good at lower levels and some at higher levels. And Trapper fills that lower rating role very nicely, though that still does suck since he gets stuck on the short end of the stick due to how DBD's matchmaking works. But even with that, I still enjoy Trapper enough to give him the first spot on the list. One of the biggest appeals of licensed characters is being able to play a very faithful recreation of a classic horror icon. I mean, that should be a given, but not every game is able to live up to that level of dedication or fun. And being fun is the main thing for me because I barely have watched any of these series. Though I do know enough to be excited when, say, Freddy Krueger or Ghostface is added. I didn't know jack shit about Stranger Things before Demogorgon was added, but even with that didn't change the fact that Demodoggo was a very fun beast. And that's probably one of the best aspects of Demogorgon. It's the first non-human killer in the game. Sure, it's still humanoid, and I would have preferred something like last year's Spider, but even still, having a non-human in the game is wonderful. Then there's their gameplay, which in a way has everything you need. You have a shred that is good for gap closing, breaking pallets, and even mind gaming due to giving an indication when you're going to use it, which can then lead survivors not to taking vaults and can lead to them getting smacked by your M1. And then there's the portal, which can be placed down and gone through to traverse the map, giving Demo some of the best map pressure in the game. Combine this with barbecue and chili and some well-placed portals, and you can very easily traverse the map and get downs on survivors. Or place one near a hooked survivor and combine it with make your choice to insta-down the rescuer. The portals are a lot of fun for demo. Just being able to go from one side of the map to the other so fast is so satisfying. And it's even more satisfying if you're able to turn it into a sneak attack. Because once you exit the portal, you're undetectable. Meaning your terror radius and red stain disappear and aura reading doesn't work on you. Though good luck sneaking up on someone when walking around sounds like thunder. He's as quiet as a ninja. There's also the Oblivious status effect that's given to survivors who try and break portals, though that doesn't usually get most of the use. All of this sounds great and makes Demogorgon sound like a top tier killer. So why is he number 9? I think the big problem I have with Demogorgon is his jack of all trades status. He does a lot of things and does a lot of things well, but I don't find him as satisfying as other killers. I guess it's one of those subjective feeling things, but then again this whole list is a subjective feeling thing, so meh. But if we're talking about issues that Demogorgon has for himself specifically, the only thing I found to be noticeably annoying was the fact that you can't remove portals you've already placed. It may sound weird when I praised them earlier, but when you need a portal in a specific place and have none available, it can really suck. Oh yeah, and I forget to mention yet you can only have 9 at a time. What? You're a fucking idiot! Is this a deal breaker? Not in the slightest. Demogorgon is still a great killer. They just suffer the issue that I have a lack of desire to play him. Then again, I guess that's the same issue that other killers have, so I'll take it.
The Plague.
Plague is an interesting killer to say the least. Considering she was released right after the Legion, who was received incredibly poorly on release, people were worried that she may end up being another problem child for the game, so Behavior had to do something to make sure the next release wasn't another train wreck like the previous one. They did this by giving her the grossest power they possibly could. So while her power is unsurprisingly disgusting, it does have a decent effect. Puking on someone starts to make them sick, and after they become sick enough, their fucking bones break, putting them into the injured state and preventing them from healing themselves. The only way to cleanse this status, known as broken, is to go to a pool of devotion and cleanse the sickness. This isn't too hard, provided you aren't in a chase, but cleansing at these fountains will result in them becoming corrupted, allowing the plague to empower her puke. I really just wrote that line. With her corrupted puke, the vomit will now just damage whoever it hits instead of infecting them over time. That may sound like it defeats the purpose of sickness, but you can't argue with results. And corrupted puke is one of the best projectiles in the game, if not the best. Because if even the tiniest pixel clips the survivor, it's a hit. Same with normal puke. If one tiny pixel hits you, you're sick. This makes getting people sick and injured very easily, made even better by how contagious it is. Not only can you infect objects making those who touch them sick, but a fully sick survivor can infect objects as well as infect people who touch them, making the virus spread even more. All of this provides for a fun, if gross gameplay loop where survivors are infected, they cleanse themselves of the sickness, then you get Corrupt Purge, provided they cleanse. Yeah, as strange as it sounds, survivors sometimes won't cleanse at all, which will leave them at a one-hit down for the whole match. But some survivors, especially at higher ranks, are uncomfortable playing a match while injured and would rather not deal with the power of Corrupt Purge. And if everyone isn't cleansing, then you basically become an M1 killer who can sometimes heal injured survivors. However, you can use this to your advantage by running Fanatophobia, giving you a huge speed decrease if they don't cleanse. Also, you always start with at least one pool corrupted, so you don't rely on survivors cleansing in order to get it. This also discourages survivors from not cleansing, which from my experience does work, since I've seen less matches where survivors don't cleanse since this change went through. And more matches where the plague gets to use her power is good, because otherwise she suffers the same issues as Trapper. And that is what brings it down for me. But nevertheless, the plague is still a fun killer. A fun, extremely disgusting killer. Psychological horror intrigues me. The way things can instill fear into people not by doing something, but through the implication of something is so fascinating. I mean, a man with a machete or a chainsaw is an immediate threat, sure, but you can at least defend yourself. But something that has the power to strike when you're at your most vulnerable, that can strike in the one place people believe they are the most safe, that is truly what keeps me up at night. And then he gets released and he's the worst killer in the game. Yeah, despite all the talk about the psychological horror thing, Freddy was nothing of the sort. Sure, always being invisible with an omnidirectional lullaby to disguise your terror radius sounds scary, but with a power that boils down to a minor slow and requires you to wait 7 seconds after using it to even hit a survivor? Yeah, no amount of upsides can change the fact that Freddy was the worst. It was so bad that it was a running gag for the community. He was so bad that Behavior decided to pull a Riot Games and gave Freddy the York Mori treatment, leaving him in an unplayable state until he eventually got reworked. You know, only a year and a half after his release. So, how's the Freddy rework? Would he be number 7 if he wasn't good? In all seriousness, Freddy does provide some interesting and unique gameplay that fits his theme as a dream demon. Instead of needing to put everyone into sleep manually, everyone will fall asleep after a minute has passed or after being hit. While they're asleep, they hear the omnidirectional lullaby. Freddy also has 2 abilities, the ability to set traps and teleportation. Oh, I see how it is, you fucker. Can't do well with your own ideas, you have to steal them from other people. Don't they own 100% copies of other powers? The teleport can only be used on generators and causes blood to gush out of it. This gives survivors an indication that you're teleporting to it, but that can be to your advantage. Indicating that you're teleporting to a generator can force survivors off of it. And using Hex Ruin and Dead Man Switch, you can get a lot of aggression off of generators with it. So now Freddy has great map pressure, but usually this comes at having weaker chase potential. But Freddy actually has some pretty good chases thanks to his traps. And yes, I say traps. Plural. Using certain add-ons, he can change out his dream snares for dream pallets. Snares slow survivors who walk over them and make them scream, and pallets explode in a burst of blood, leaving the fool who threw it down without a pallet. Pallets are obviously much stronger, but snares are much more consistent, as survivors won't always run where pallets spawn. Of course, this sounds broken, and it ain't. These abilities only affect survivors who are asleep, and there are multiple ways that survivors can wake themselves up. They can wake each other up, provided one of them is already awake, they can find an alarm clock, or they could even fail a skill check, although that does work in favor of Freddy. But even with them able to wake themselves up, that's just a minor issue considering how good Freddy is. And Freddy is really good and really fun. It took them almost 2 years, but it was certainly worth the wait. The rework is here, and Freddy is certainly ready. Speaking of another licensed killer everyone wanted, this is going to be an interesting one to talk about considering my feelings towards another killer who isn't on the list. So I'ma just rip the band-aid off and say it. I don't like playing Myers. Aside from the fact that I find him to be an asinine killer to face, his reliance on having to stalk people for a while to not only get your Super Saiyan mode, but to not be a crippled killer at the start of the match, really takes a lot of the fun out of it for me. Ghostface on the other hand takes the same idea Myers has, and does it in a way that I find to be more engaging and fun. Like Myers, Ghostface is about stalking his prey, but where Myers stores all the stock up in order to gain superpowers that allow him insta-down people for a couple seconds, stalking with Ghostface builds stock up on a specific person. Once he stalks enough, they're exposed and will go instantly down. Same basic idea, but Ghostface takes less time at the expense of only doing it on one person. However, I feel like this is made up for by how much more fun it is to be stealthy as Ghostface. With Myers, you are only really super stealthy with him in Tier 1, which moves slower and has a shorter lunge range. With Ghostface, just press M2, and you are Ghost. No red stain, no heartbeat, except you're still at normal movement speed and have the same lunge range. Also, you can lean on terrain, allowing you to stalk over walls, which is very fun and spooky. Oh, and you can teabag. Probably the most important detail. This of course makes his stealthy stalking very nice, but it also helps with mind games as well. Dropping the red stain can make it hard for survivors to tell which way you're going during a loop, and can allow you to get free hits on them much easier and much faster. All of this is topped off by something that I think is a positive that you probably wouldn't expect when I'm talking about why I like killers. Interactive counterplay. While Ghostface is cloaked, looking directly at him long enough will break him out of the stealth, returning his terror radius and preventing him from stalking. Though he will get an indicator to tell him he is seen and will show where the person who broke him out is. This makes Ghostface, in my opinion, the most fun killer to face. Trying to break him out of stealth is enjoyable and provides more interaction between him and the survivors than most killers who just boil down to stay as far away from them as possible. Now of course he does have some issues, specifically he lacks map pressure and the mind game doesn't work on those who don't have a mind, but that doesn't take away from the enjoyment of Ghostface. I'll take playing him over Myers any day. Yeah, I'm definitely not making any friends with this video.
Look out! so likes you.
Clown is another fairly simple killer, but is a fun one. What do the clown do? He yeet. You see a survivor? Toss a nice bottle of Axe body spray on them. And boom, you stunk up the place. The gas from these bottles blurs the vision of survivors and slows them down a considerable amount, making it easy to hit them on loops or slow them during a chase. And as much as I'd like to say there's more to the clown, there really isn't. Looks like we got another simple boy like Trapper. Hell, even down to the fact that both of their powers are similar in that they're very good at area denial. So what makes Clown good enough to put him this high on the list? Well, aside from the fact that he's a chonker, Clown's bottles are just really fun to use. Tossing them feels nice and they provide a good way to end chases. And he does that really well, being one of the best killers at ending chases. Sadly, that is all he's good at, as he kinda struggles with everything else, especially map pressure. So why is Clown so high if I don't have much to say about him, and I can clearly say there's a lot of issues with him in terms of things aside from chasing? I just think he's fun to play despite how simple he is, and despite his shortcomings. And I know every killer on this list is fun, wouldn't be on it if they weren't. But with the other ones I can at least explain why I find them fun. Clown just feels fun. It feels fun to toss bottles at people, it feels fun to hear them scream when they enter a cloud. Hell, hitting them with the bottle is fun in its own right. I just enjoy playing him because I think he's enjoyable. Sometimes it's fine to not try to be objective and explain yourself and just say, haha, funny clown, go honk honk. I used to think in life that I had to try to justify why I liked everything with lengthy explanations, even if the thing wasn't considered that great. But then I realized that wasn't what life was about. Life is a comedy. So I started playing this game back in 2017, and around that time Behavior released the Huntress, a killer who used throwing hatchets. This was meant to be an answer for people asking for a killer to have a range attack, since they couldn't just give a killer a gun. So here's a killer with a gun. Okay, so before we talk about this killer, can I just state the obvious and say Deathslinger's a stupid name? It sounds like what Legion would call themselves if they were cowboys. And because of that, I will be a normal person and refer to them as the Gunslinger. So Gunslinger, he has a gun, a harpoon gun that also has a reel on it, allowing the gunslinger to reel in their targets, which is why I shall now be referring to them as the Fisherman. So the Fisherman's power sounds absolutely broken, right? I mean, you have a fucking gun that goes bang bang on people. And yeah, the gun is very strong. It doesn't have as much potential as hatchets for snowballing, but it is way more consistent than them. One of the main drawbacks of the hatchets is their windup. They have a lot of startup and don't go very far if not charged, which can make them very hard to use on certain loops. The gun on the other hand has no windup. You can't hip fire, but aiming down sights is very fast and you can fire very quickly. This makes dodging it very hard and can easily catch people off guard during loops, made better by the size and speed of the shot. The harpoon is stupid fast, traveling at 40 meters a second, same as a fully charged Huntress hatchet with no charge time of the hatchet. And like I mentioned before, the gun reels in whoever it hits, so you can even pull them away from pallets preventing saves. This would be broken if the pull was unlimited, which it isn't. The line can only take so much, and causing too much tension on the line will break it, with it breaking faster if there's something in the way, which can include survivors by the way. But even then, they still get injured if it snaps and are inflicted with deep wounds, requiring them to mend it. And you can always lunge partway to snap the line yourself, although not inflicting injury if you don't hit them. And adding on to another thing the Fisherman has over the Huntress, reloading with him is much better. It's faster than the Huntress by default and doesn't require you to go to a locker to reload. You can do it where you stand, getting you back in the chase much sooner. So yeah, Deathslinger sounds like an easy pub stomp killer, but he really isn't. Getting those quick scopes can be tough, and requires both knowledge and skill to pull it off. Hell, his shots have such an accurate hitbox that they can go through even the tiniest cracks in the wall, allowing good players to use it to win loops. He's one of the most skill-expressive killers in the game, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And that's a big reason why playing him is so fun and why he's so high. But it also plays into his biggest problem. Deathslinger isn't fun to face. I wouldn't say he's my least favorite to face, but getting hit by quick scopes while trying to dodge and keep a loop can be really annoying. and it can lead to some frustrating snowball situations, which Deathslinger is really good at doing. Funny, isn't it? What makes you one of the funnest killers in the game to play also happens to make you one of the least fun killers to face. Of course, I do feel like the fun factor outweighs the frustration, but it's still something to consider. But even still, Deathslinger is really fun, and in my opinion way better than Huntress. And it just dawned on me halfway through scripting this entry, I dropped the joke about calling him the Fisherman, and didn't even realize it. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Jump scares are fucking stupid. Actually, do they even deserve to be called scares? Since most of the time, they're just startling you. Jump scares do serve a purpose though. It's meant to demonstrate that there's an immediate threat, and can kick in the body's flight or fight instincts. This tends to fail though when it's used in a non-interactive form of media, since there are better ways to do it without annoying the audience. But using it as a way to get the players to react instantly instead of giving them time to process can be a good thing, provided it's done correctly. So when Behavior decide to throw their hand into the ring and give the idea of a jump scare based killer a shot, are they able to invoke this reaction?
I'm dancing. You fucking guilty.
There are some killers who are weak in some areas and good in others. Hag, depending on the match, is either one of the best killers in the game or one of the worst killers in the game. I don't think I've seen a killer as polarizing as her in my entire time playing, and that's all based around her traps. You draw a triangle on the ground, and when a survivor walks near, they get FNAF'd. Now this can be a good way to be alert of where survivors are since you can see which ones has been tripped, but if that was all, then it'd be shit. There are better ways of tracking, and while jump scaring them can be fun, most players will get used to it after a while. However, there is one thing about it that makes it really good. When a nearby trap is triggered, the Hag can then teleport to the trap, and this alone can open up so much potential for stuff. First off, it gives Hag decent map pressure as she can use it to traverse the map. But what's really good about it is its chase potential. Obviously, chasing a survivor to a trap can get you a quick and easy smack, but with how fast you can place them, you can very easily set one mid-chase, allowing you to get an easy hit when they loop around. Now you may ask why they don't just leave the loop as soon as they start placing the trap, and I say shut up. The traps also make Hag one of the best defensive killers in the game. Setting traps near gens or hook survivors can allow the Hag to return to them very quickly, which also makes perks like Make Your Choice and Devour Hope really good on them. Or you can mix things up and run Body Blocker Hag, now giving her traps collision and making them slow people nearby, making certain loops unusable if they aren't avoided. But this also leads into Hag's weakness. It can be very easy to avoid traps. You can crouch over them without triggering them, which isn't always ideal since the Hag can always catch up to you and is impossible during a chase, but the more useful way is to use a flashlight to destroy them. Destroying them is really hindering for the Hag. Since she is a 110 movement speed killer, she relies on it a lot for her map presence and chase potential. Heck, even triggering them normally can hinder the Hag since she might not be in a position to use it, especially with Body Blocker Hag. Having the traps triggered away from you really hurts. That's why I said she was so polarizing. Depending on how the players play, she can be really good or really bad. But despite this, Hag is still a very fun killer, and I still have a blast playing her. Also, her Mori is really fucking brutal and I love it. Story time! So despite the fact that DBD is a game that I've put a lot of hours into, I wasn't really interested in it at the start. It wasn't until sometime in May or June, I think, that a video from Achievement Hunter was posted that I decided to watch, and I loved it. And it just so happens that the killer who was the star of that video is not only a second place killer, but was originally my favorite killer in the game. Oh boy, let me tell you, if you want to embrace your sadistic side, then Doctor is the one for you. He also got an update recently, so that's nice. Doctor is known as one of those killers that can be fun to play, but frustrating to face, similarly to Legion and Deathslinger. This mainly comes from his main gimmick, madness. Shocking someone with shock therapy or a static blast causes their madness to go up, which causes them to scream every time it goes up a tier. The more mad you are, the more fucked you are. He can even make you so mad that the match ends while there's still one person left alive. What? Tier 1 causes your skill checks to have a slight chance to appear in a random spot. Tier 2 has a higher chance and summons illusionary doctors to stare at you creepily. And Tier 3 randomly makes the survivors scream. Illusion doctors, 100% chance of random skill checks, locking survivors out of repairing and healing, and a chance to have skill checks go backwards. That second to last one really hurts survivors, as it greatly slows them down due to being unable to heal or do a generator. Meaning you can just leave a survivor at -3 to fuck off to their own devices while you go and make somebody else insane. You can snap out of -3, putting you back at tier 1, but good luck with random and backwards skill checks. And if you fail a skill check, this gives Doc some decently good slowdown, plus amazing tracking with survivors constantly screaming. He even has good looping thanks to the shock, which temporarily prevents survivors from vaulting or throwing down pallets, meaning that a well-timed shock can easily get you some free hits. Really the only thing he lacks is map pressure, but with how fun he is, and how good he is in other sections, I'm totally okay with that. And the Doctor's fun factor is a lot of why he's so high. Just shocking people and hearing them scream is so enjoyable. Also, he has a fantastic Mori. Not as good as Hags or Onis, but still great. Now this does beg a question. Earlier I said he was like Deathslinger where he's fun to play but annoying to face. And that is true. It's very hard to be stealthy against him and dealing with loops can really suck if you get shocked. So why did I put him higher than Deathslinger? Well 1, he's more fun, and 2, Calm Spirit. I know that may sound like a meme considering it's a meme perk, but Calm Spirit is actually my favorite survivor perk, and it's one that I always run. Not only does it remove Doctors screaming, but it also counters other killer perks, like Infectious Fright and Spies from the Shadows. I just really like this perk. He's not good, but I love it. I like the birds. Oh right, this was about Doctor. Doctor's a pretty fun killer. Yeah, no, that's all I've got to say. I'm gonna be honest, while licensed killers may be cool to have, I tend to enjoy them less than the original killers. I wouldn't say that's specifically because they are licensed killers, but I found that I didn't really enjoy how they played. Like they didn't have as fun or interesting effects as other killers. Hell, Freddy was the worst killer in the game before his rework, and Leatherface is my least favorite killer. But, as you can tell since we're at number 1, there was one licensed killer that rised above all of the rest. And of all series to give us that killer, it's the one that's basically torture porn. I've never seen any of the Saw movies. Considering how much of a pussy I am when it comes to horror movies as is, a series like Saw that is mainly about people being tortured horrifically? Yeah, somebody as squeamish as me would not like that. And yet, Amanda Young, known as the Pig, somehow managed to become my favorite killer in this game. Why is that? Is it because of her power? Her design? The noise she makes when she's stunned? Yes, all of that. Well, mainly the power. Like other killers, she has a 2-part power, with a crouching move and her special bear traps. The crouch isn't the best stealth in the game, but the fact that you get a lunge is very helpful, allowing you to close the distance between survivors, or get a free hit when sneaking up on them. But the real appeal of Pepper Porker are the reverse bear traps. Have you ever wanted to place a device on someone's head that will rip their face off after a matter of seconds? If so, get help. But if so in video game form, then this power is for you. Place a trap on a survivor's head, and once the gems pop, that survivor has 2.5 minutes to find a key, hidden in one of the 4 jigsaw boxes scattered throughout the map. Failure to do so equals death. That isn't an exaggeration, by the way. If the trap goes off, you're out. Dead. Gone. Bye bye. Hungry boy, eat! This means Pig is the only killer in the game who can sacrifice survivors off of the hook, without the need for add-ons or perks. Or well, at least she was. That sounds busted, right? Yes, it does, but there is counterplay to it to make it not a hopeless situation. While survivors will die in 2.5 minutes, it only starts once generator is popped, meaning you can get it off while it's deactivated. Also, without add-ons, it only takes 12 seconds to finish a box, meaning that even if they have the worst luck possible, it only takes 48 seconds to open all the boxes. So it seems more like a waste of time than something that kills you. And that's the beauty of it. The reverse bear traps are one of the best ways to stall a match. Not because of what they will do to someone, but because of what they can do to someone. The fear of instant death causes survivors to stop working on generators, and that gives you time to kill more people, which then allows you to stall even more, and so on. Combine it with the bitch boy combo of Enduring and Spirit Fury to make chases end quicker, and Hex Ruin to slow the game down just a little bit, haha, I said the meme, funny, and the game will grind to a crawl for the survivors. Plus, if you want the pressure of the trap snapping, you can interact survivors at the boxes to waste even more time, possibly ending their life. Also, survivors can't go through the exit gates if the trap is active, so that's a problem for them. Now, obviously just slowing the game down isn't everything, and yeah, Pig suffers in other areas. But to be honest, I don't really care. Pig's gameplay is so fun and so interesting to me that it doesn't even matter how good she actually is. And that's really all that matters in the end. My name is Erablier, and Pig is one of the many reasons why Dead by Daylight is, and will always be, my favorite multiplayer horror. Wait, Identity 5 is having a crossover with Danganronpa?